July 20th, 1969, the world watched in awe as two American astronauts, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, took humanity's first step on the moon.
2, 1, 0, all engines running. Liftoff, we have a liftoff, 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. 20 feet down, 2.5, picking up some dust. 30 feet, 2.5 down, break shadow. 4 forward, drift into the right a little. 20, down a half, contact light. Okay, engine stop. Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Roger, Tranquility, we copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot. Okay, Neil, we can see you coming down the ladder now. I'm at the foot of the ladder. The limb footpads are only depressed in the surface about 1 or 2 inches. I'm going to step off the limb now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Tony, this is so great you can't believe it. I believe it, Charlie. It's raining, Johnny. Look at it go, would you, Charlie? You got all your steering and it's straight. Oh, this is going to be some kind of different ride. Hippity hoppity, hippity hopping over hill and dale. Da 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 da. Hippity hopping along. One ignition. Burn away, Houston. Vector good. We're burning flat. Roger. Looks good, flight. How's the base shot flight? Roger. Descending. Stand by for splashdown. Recovery America. Stable water. The cruise call.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. It was a moment of unparalleled triumph, a testament to human ingenuity, and a resounding victory in the Cold War space race. Don't forget to subscribe to Uncover the Why for more deep dives into history's greatest enigmas. But for decades, a persistent and nagging question has lingered in the shadows. Did it really happen? While millions celebrated, another group of people began to notice small, unsettling details in the official footage and photographs, anomalies that, when pieced together, tell a very different story. Tonight, we're diving into the evidence that has fueled the most enduring conspiracy theory of our time. We'll explore the curious shadows, the impossible flag, and the unanswered questions that make us wonder, was the greatest achievement in human history actually its greatest hoax? The Apollo 11 mission was meticulously documented with countless photos and hours of video. But it's within these very records that the conspiracies begin. The most famous piece of evidence is a photograph of the American flag planted on the lunar surface. It appears to be waving with a visible ripple. The problem? There's no air, no atmosphere, and therefore, no wind on the moon. A flag on the moon should hang limp, completely still, like a piece of cloth in a vacuum. The flag in the photo, however, seems to defy all known physics. NASA's official explanation is that the ripple was caused by the astronauts unfurling the flag from its packaging, and that a telescopic rod was extended along the top to keep it from drooping. The waving is simply the cloth settling in a state of suspended animation, but to many, the persistent ripples look far too natural to be static. Some theorists even suggest that the flag's nylon material, which can be affected by thermal changes in static electricity in a vacuum, would not react in a way that creates such a distinct rippling effect. Furthermore, the very existence of the rod itself is seen as suspicious. Why go to the trouble of adding an extra piece of equipment to make a flag fly on a world without wind, unless you are trying to create a specific patriotic image for the camera? Then there are the shadows. In photographs from the landing site, the shadows cast by the astronauts and equipment don't appear to be parallel. If the only source of light is the sun, a single, incredibly distant light source, all shadows should be consistent. Yet, we see them pointing in different directions, suggesting multiple light sources, a setup that would be impossible impossible on the moon, but perfectly common in a film studio. Imagine a theatrical stage with multiple lights casting shadows from different angles. That's what many of the photos appear to show. NASA attributes this to the uneven lunar terrain, arguing that hills and valleys can create the illusion of non-parallel shadows. The human eye, accustomed to a flat landscape, is simply not used to interpreting shadows on a curved, dusty surface. But conspiracists counter that the inconsistencies are too stark to be explained away by something as simple as uneven ground, and that the effect is more likely a result of studio lighting from various angles to illuminate the subjects. And where are the stars? When you look at the images of the lunar sky, it is a completely empty, black void. NASA explains that the stars were too dim to be captured by the cameras, which were set to expose for the brightly lit lunar surface and the sun. This is a concept known as dynamic range in photography. The bright reflective surface of the moon and the stark sunlight would overpower the faint light from distant stars, causing them to not appear on the film. However, for millions of people, this explanation doesn't quite add up. If there's no atmosphere to distort the light, shouldn't the stars be even more visible and vibrant than they are from Earth? For many, the absence of stars is a clear sign that the photos were taken on a soundstage, where an artist might forget to add them in, or where it would be too difficult to convincingly fake a realistic night sky. The deeper you dig, the more confusing it gets. Consider the blast crater. When a lunar module landed on the moon, it would have fired its powerful descent engine to slow down. That engine should have created a visible crater and scattered dust across the surface. Yet, in all of the official photos, there is no blast crater beneath the module. The ground appears perfectly smooth, and the lunar module's feet are clean, untouched by dust. NASA's argument is that the powerful engine was throttling down as the module approached the surface, and the lunar soil was too hard packed for the engine to create a significant impression. The engine exhaust in a vacuum is also different from exhaust in an atmosphere, creating less of a plume. But conspiracists point out that even a slight impression should be visible, and the total lack of displaced dust or a depression seems highly improbable. And what about that curious rock? In one of the most widely circulated photographs from the mission, a rock in the foreground appears to have a letter C printed on it. Conspiracy theorists claim this is a prop master's label, a telltale sign of a film set. Mainstream experts argue it's a hair or a piece of debris on the negative, but the consistency of the mark with the curve of the rock's shadow has led many to believe otherwise. Then, there are other mysterious visual inconsistencies. In some photos, the crosshairs meant to be imprinted on every image by the camera's optics seem to be behind objects, rather than on top of them. This suggests objects were pasted into the image, a form of early photo manipulation. In another famous photo of Buzz Aldrin, his visor reflection doesn't show the camera or the photographer, but instead, what appears to be a stage light or another unexplained object. Furthermore, some conspiracists point to what they call a fake backdrop, where the same hills and landscape seem to appear in different photos taken at different times and angles, as if the astronauts were simply moving around a single painted set. But perhaps the most difficult question of all involves the Van Allen radiation belt, a band of intense radiation that surrounds Earth. This belt is made of high-energy protons and electrons. These particles, trapped by Earth's magnetic field, are extremely dangerous. A sustained dose can cause severe radiation sickness, cell damage, and a heightened risk of cancer. So how did the Apollo astronauts manage to pass through it safely, multiple times, without any significant issues? NASA claims the astronauts passed through the belt so quickly that their exposure was minimal, and the spacecraft's hull, made of aluminum, provided sufficient shielding. But for many, this remains an unacceptable risk. A gamble so huge that it seems unbelievable that 3 men could have survived it without any signs of radiation sickness upon their return. And what about the astronauts' movement themselves? While we were told they were bouncing around in 1/6 gravity, some conspiracists argue the footage is simply in slow motion. They point to the fact that the astronauts' movements seem to lack the true bounciness one would expect from low gravity. Their jumps aren't very high, and they seem to be walking on a surface that gives way just a little bit, but they never sink into the fine lunar dust or regolith. This has led some to suggest the footage was created using wires and harnesses in a studio, and simply played back at a slower speed to mimic the effects of low gravity. So, if the moon landing was faked, why would anyone do it? The answer, according to conspiracy theorists, lies in the intense political and cultural climate of the Cold War. The United States was in a fierce space race against the Soviet Union. Losing was not an option. The Soviet Union had already launched the first satellite, Sputnik, and the first man in space, Yuri Gagarin. The pressure to win was immense. President Kennedy's bold declaration in 1961 that America would land a man on the moon by the end of the decade was a promise that had to be kept at all costs. The technology was brand new, the challenges were enormous, and a failure could have easily led to a major loss of life and national humiliation on the global stage. The Soviet Union's own space program had suffered multiple tragic failures that the US was desperate to avoid. What better way to secure a victory than to stage one? Faking the landing would guarantee a win, boost national morale, and give the US a decisive advantage in the Cold War without risking the lives of its astronauts. Think about the sheer amount of money involved. NASA's budget was astronomical, and a failure could have easily led to the program being shut down. The prestige, the political power, the sheer national pride at stake. For some, the motivation to stage the entire event was simply too great to ignore. In this light, the moon landing wasn't just a scientific expedition, it was a carefully constructed piece of propaganda, a message to the rest of the world that America's technology, willpower, and ingenuity were second to none. This was a war fought not with bullets, but with rockets and photographs. And in a propaganda war, the image of victory is what truly matters. This brings us to one of the most fascinating theories of all. Who would have had the skill to pull off such a massive cinematic deception? Many point to legendary filmmaker Stanley Kubrick. After all, he had just directed 2001, A Space Odyssey, a film widely praised for its realistic and groundbreaking special effects. The timing is almost too perfect. Some theorists argue that the lighting, the stark aesthetic, and the attention to detail in the moon landing footage bear a striking resemblance to Kubrick's work. They suggest he was secretly hired by the government to direct the moon landing on a soundstage, creating a cinematic masterpiece that would fool the world. Mainstream science and NASA stand by their mission logs, their data, and their explanations. They have debunked these theories time and time again. They point to the moon rocks, the laser reflectors left on the moon that are still used today, and the thousands of people involved in the Apollo missions as definitive proof. But to the millions of people who still question the official story, the explanations are simply not enough. Is it a massive, decades-long cover-up, meticulously planned to fool the entire world? Or is it a testament to human achievement, so incredible and so far ahead of its time that we still struggle to comprehend it? Were we the heroes of a new frontier, or were we simply the audience to the greatest show on Earth? We're left with two distinct realities. One, where humanity conquered the impossible, and another, where we were fooled by an elaborate stage production. Which one you choose to believe depends entirely on how you answer those lingering questions about the waving flag, the starless sky, and the silent shadows. What do you think? Let us know in the comments below. And for more ancient mysteries, be sure to check out our other videos and subscribe to Uncover the Why to join us as we continue exploring the fascinating stories history still has left to reveal. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay safe.